Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on volume 30 of Ace of the Diamond, Act 2. Oh, I'm so happy that we're at the finals. I'm really excited that we're here. I'm just very bittersweet that we only have a couple more volumes until we're caught up. And I'm telling myself, everybody on the Discord's been like, I'm gonna be sad when Ace of the Diamond's gone. I'm like, it's not gone. We're just gonna be on hiatus until new volumes come out. The good thing about Ace of the Diamond is that it is not a like month-to-month chapter release. Most of the manga that I'm reading are like monthly chapters, and that's so daunting. And you would think with Ace of the Diamond being 9 chapters, that would be insane. But the chapters typically, fingers crossed, knock on wood, get released within every week. So, with the exception of some weeks off. So you're looking at like a couple months just for a volume reaction. That's not bad. We can do that. I'm going to be extremely heartbroken when the series actually ends, but I am totally fine with, I can be patient. I can be fine with waiting for volume to volume as they come out. And as Kelsey in the Discord noted, I realized doing the math that right now I think it's on chapter 302 is where they're at, and that's going to be volume 33 ends at chapter 301, or it should end at volume 301. So I'll be able to do 31, 32, and 33 the rest of this month, and then probably have to wait on volume 34. But like Kelsey pointed out, that's only going to be a couple weeks because we've already been building up weeks of chapters already. So see, it'll be fine. And then I told everybody in the Discord, well, you guys can just have fun with the black boxes, and I'll just sit around and wait for the volume to come out. But I'm so happy we're in the finals. I had Wine Chan the last 2 volumes, and tonight I was like, I'm just having some juice. I'm like, Wine Chan does not need to be out again tonight. But we're in the middle, not even the middle, we're like in the first inning. We've had one half inning right now in volume 29 of the finals with Inashiro. We just had the first inning where Mei pitched. We were doing great. I was really excited that Kurmochi got a hit. Everything's going all right. Miyuki got a hit. That's promising. That means that Mei's not infallible. They can get a hit off of him. But that ball going right to Mei, yikes. If that's not a statement, right? So the question is now, Furuya is going to be the starter pitcher. And so how is he going to handle Inashiro? And I want Furuya to do good. Don't get me wrong. I love my sunshine boy. I'm so proud of him back from the semifinals. But I do love Furuya. And I really liked how Furuya's characters come all this way from where he started from. So I want Furuya to succeed and do well for the team and for himself. So that part's going to be curious to see how Furuya does in this opening inning and how he starts out. And I hope he starts out strong, but it's Terajima. You never know. It's like, what BS is he gonna pull? We don't know. So I've got my juice. I'm excited. I hope you all are too. But let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into volume 30, chapters 266 to 274. I'm pretty excited. I hope you all are too. But we are gonna start this old volume out here, and we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. This game's gonna stress me out, isn't it? I don't know. It's the weirdest feeling. It's the weirdest feeling. I thought that going into this, I would be a lot more stressed than I was. And I think it's because Furuya's pitching. I think it's because going into this, I don't know. With Ichidai Third's game, I always kind of suspected they were going to try to leave Sawamura in for as many innings as they could. And I thought that there was a chance that maybe they'd sub him out like the 7th or 8th inning. But then by the time we got to the 7th or 8th inning and he was doing really well, I was like, okay, no, they're going to leave Sawamura in. But here, like when they bring up that little point, they're like, well, it's all going to come down to when we switch out pitchers. And I'm like, isn't it though? I don't know. I'm going to just go ahead and say this. I love Furuya in this volume. I do. Furuya is our sweet polar bear bean. But I don't know. It's the weirdest line. And I'm not saying it's a double standard. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. It's Furuya, let me phrase it this way. He's doing amazing in terms of like the force he's putting behind his pitches. They're the fastest he's been. He's had the most strikeouts I think he's had in a long time. He's doing well, but at the same time, he's going all out. We know Furuya does not have a lot of stamina, and he gets a lot of walks. And I know that's not a big deal, but it's weird that he gets like 2 walks in 1 inning, and they're like, nobody says a word about it. Nobody says a word. Miyuki's like, he's doing great. And then Ryo's the savage that calls it out. Ryo's like, what is this walk business? And Yuki's like, that's our Furuya. And I'm like, stop, no. That's our Furuya is not really what we want necessarily. It depends on how you phrase that, but not in the way that they were. But it's like the third years are the only ones that kind of see that, yeah, he's doing real good, but he's still walking people and he's going all out, and we're only in the 5th inning. Like when Kataoka says calm down, it's like, yeah, no, you gotta. I don't know if in a big game if Furuya could last all 9 innings. I don't know. I'm not sure he could, if I'm being honest. And I think that ties the whole ace thing. And we'll talk about that in this volume. But I hate to like criticize Furuya, because I think he's doing great in this game and I think he's doing well. But it's just, there's always that edge with Furuya, right? There's always that edge with him and Sawamura. They're totally different edges. With Sawamura, it's a mental thing. With Sawamura, it's all in his head. With Furuya, it is a physical thing. With Furuya, it is literally his stamina and his physicality more so than his mental state. Because Furuya's pretty good at mentally like zoning out or getting in the zone when he needs to. He overstrains, but that's a physical thing. So it's interesting how him and Sawamura are different, and they create anxiety in different ways for you as you watch the games that they're pitching in. But yeah, I took a ton of notes. I've got a lot, so let's just dive into this. Chapter 266, man. So Mei walking cocky, being mad about Miyuki, just being mad that he hit, you know, just being mad about it, right? That he hit his pitch. And Itsuki trying to calm him down. I love Mei saying, like, I won't let him touch my stuff again. It's crazy. I had to, like, literally reread that because we went through, like, a whole batting roster in this entire volume. Like, we went from the bottom of the 1st into the 5th inning in this one volume. I was like, wait! We still have several volumes to go, right, for this game? Right? So I'm like, wait, what? It's gonna have to slow down. It's gonna have to slow down. Y'all, the game ain't over yet right now. Don't tell me, don't spoil me, none of that. But I'm like, no, where you guys are at now, I'm like, no. I was like, come on, it's gonna be, if we're already at the 5th inning, we got through like 4 innings in a volume. That's like the Senko game went so much slower, but I have a feeling it's gonna slow down, right? It's gonna slow down. And maybe here's the thing. Sawamura is our protagonist. He is our best boy, our sunshine boy, and Terajima likes to get into Sawamura's head and deal with what Sawamura is thinking, and that's what's dynamic and compelling about Sawamura as a pitcher. That's what people loved about during the Ichidai third game, is that you get into Sawamura's head. We talked in the comments about it, and just see like the strategies he comes up with and everything. Furuya doesn't really strategize. Not really, he's just force. So these chapters go by really quickly because we don't hear Furuya thinking anything, really. It's just like, I'll do it. I can do this. I'm going to try my best. Like, it's all very, it's very simplistic because Furuya's not like it's not in his head thing. Whereas when we get to Mei's kind of like Sawamura, where it's just like all this chatter is going on, right? And so I feel like these chapters go by a lot faster because we don't really have much to get from Furuya mentally. He's just in the zone doing his thing. Whereas when we get Sawamura on the mound, it's like all this stuff happening. So maybe that's why Ichidai Third's match went a lot slower and the chapters felt a lot longer, because we were getting in Sawamura's head. And maybe we're going to switch Furuya out. Furuya is not lasting this whole game. There's too many red flags in this volume that I was like, well, it's good Furuya had his volume. That's how I feel. I'm like, it's a good thing Furuya had his volume. That was great. Because I feel like there's too many red flags that they just threw throughout this volume that Terajima's just like, here's the breadcrumbs of Sawamura coming back at some point. So Sawamura is going to come in, and maybe that's when the volumes slow down a lot, is when Sawamura is in and we get more to think. What I'm afraid of is Sawamura is going to come in and Inashiro is going to get a run, and then the crowd's going to be like, well, Furuya didn't concede a run, and I'm going to be like, shut up. Like Kosei says, the pressure keeps mounting, right? I don't we'll talk about it. Okay. So yeah. So the whole thing with everybody cheering, Miyuki coming back, it was very noticeable when Miyuki came back in chapter 266 and Sawamura. At first I was like, where's Sawamura? Why isn't he cheering Miyuki back? Where is he? But he was in the bullpen with Koshin. with Koshu, with Koshin, thinking about Koshin, but he was in the bullpen with Koshu. And I felt really like it was noticeable that he wasn't there, and I didn't like it. I was like, no, I want Sawamura in the dugout cheering his team on. He's the captain. But he was practicing in the bullpen, so that's why he wasn't there. But God, Sawamura's obliterate them from the bullpen. I was like, yes. It feels very reminiscent of back during Nationals. Carlos has his sexy pose with the bat. Terajima was like, if I can't draw him shirtless, I'll give him he gets the best poses in here. We get like a butt shot from him. We get like the shot of him in the pose. Carlos Terajima was like, well, I can't draw him shirtless during an actual game, so this is the most fan service you get from him, and we will take it. So Carlos in his pose. I do like his him and Miyuki's their friendship. Like when he comes up to bat, him and Miyuki are like, hey, you've gotten better, so have you. Like it's very different. Like Mei's all like huffy over here, like I'm not telling you my secrets. Carlos doesn't care. Carlos is like the best friend to everybody. Carlos is like the party boy you want to be friends with. And I feel like it's great that Carlos is just like, it's fine, and just instantly becomes friends with Miyuki. I really liked that. I like that them as competitors, they can be competitors and be rivals against each other, but they're not like mean-spirited or anything. They're just like, yeah, this is how we do it. And they're all really friendly. Go Carlos. I like that. But he wanted to get Furuya's pitch last year. He didn't get a chance to it. Nori, we see him supporting him. Kunitomo watching, being quite creepy. And we see the 155 kilometers per hour and Mei's smug face, like whatever. And so 2 balls, 1 strike. Carlos, this is the first red flag about Furuya. Carlos says if it misses wide and clear, it couldn't be easier to target. And I feel like as the pressure and heat is going to mount on Furuya, there's going to be a chance he can come in and get a hit. I think if they concede a run, that is when Sawamura is going to come in. I think in the next volume, if Furuya concedes a run, then Kateoka's going to be like, okay, now's the time to change. And that's going to be that. So I just foresee it. There's like little mounting things as we go in this volume, but I think that's the first thing is red flag number 1 is Carlos pointing that out, because yeah, Furuya's just power. He's just sheer force. But if you read him right, you can get a hit off of him. He's not infallible, just like any of our other pitchers. And so it gets to the second out. Carlos gets to second nearly on Haruichi. He's like hovering over him. And I will say this for Carlos, that what I love is that he is careful he pumped the brakes. He was careful not to run Haruichi over. He didn't tackle him like Ogawa or whatever from that one team. He didn't tackle Miyuki in that sense, but he almost like ran over Haruichi, but he stops himself. Like Carlos is a courteous competitor. He's like, I'm going to do that, because that could have been a really bad deal, because Carlos like runs so fast, right? So from there, Shirakawa, he gets a bunt, allows Carlos to get to third, and we're right back to where we were in the first inning with Kuramochi on first. I liked they pointed out in the chapter, they're like, it's the same parallel, right? But Furuya doesn't seem fazed by it. And then the thing about Furuya is, unlike Mei and unlike Sawamura, Furuya kind of doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve at all. He's very private, and he doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve, and it makes it. He's kind of got a poker face. It makes it hard for you to tell what he's really thinking. Which the reality is, he's not thinking about much. I love Furuya, but he's just super focused on baseball. But he has a poker face, so that's really nice that we get attention to that. So chapter 267, I wrote a lot of notes for chapter 267, but then I wrote a lot of notes for chapter 268. So yeah, I think 268 is probably the chapter I have the most notes on, but 267 is a big runner-up. So Furuya is different to Inashiro from last year, and they note that in the chapter. They're like, he's acting different. Popfly gets out to Tojo. He goes for it. Kanemaru, man, he goes for it, and Kanemaru, I like that he makes note that he's like, Tojo, you gotta throw it home, because Carlos is gonna run on that. Even though you get him out, he's gonna go for it, and he does. But Tojo's got the laser arm, fires it up with that pitcher arm, and gets it to Miyuki. And then Miyuki's like, nah, and holds Carlos at bay at third. So that's good. And then Yamaoka comes up, and it's established he's had 68 home runs within the last year. So if anybody's going to score a home run on Furuya, it's probably going to end up being him in the next volume, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. But yeah, the third years, they're like, man, Furuya's looking good to get today, and Kuramochi gets that out. Now, Kunitomo, this part is interesting, and I got a little frustrated by it, because Kunitomo, he's like, oh, and Mei will comment on this later. he goes, oh, Kataoka, he's like back in the fall and in the spring, he's like, Furuya, you were so nervous and so stressed out and you were overstraining yourself. He's like, that's why Kataoka took your ace number away, because he realized that you couldn't perform under the pressure of being ace. So now that he's taken the ace number away, it's freed you up. That's why he did it. Which is part of it, yes, but I get so frustrated because it's like, yes, this is true, but what about Sawamura's hard work? It's like the tourist empathy in me was like, yeah, this is true about Furuya, but Sawamura put in a lot of good work to get that ace number 2. Don't you know? I just, And so then Mei had his hat off, and I think it was just to wipe his sweat, but it's funny because when Mei takes his hat off, it almost seems like he's paying respect to Furuya like Kosei was to Sawamura. But no, Mei, as it comes to find out, Mei has the quite opposite view of Furuya than Kosei did for Sawamura. It's quite a different dynamic, right? So Zono comes up to bat. Zono gets the shaft in this volume. Zono and Aso get the shaft so hard. They get the shaft because right as Zono goes up to bat and he's like, I'm going to be able to score one for the team, we cut away to a restaurant that's called Kinks. I don't know if there's really a Kinks restaurant in Japan, but Terajima, is that on the nose? Is that on the nose? And so we see Zono gets out off screen, which is really sad, but we get the Ichidai third players and they're all like, what do we do? And I like when we see like the third years afterwards, they're like, what do we do now that our careers are over? And so the third years are kind of lamenting it. And they look over to Hoshida. And I love that even though Hoshida doesn't look scary like he has in the manga, he has the little beady eyes and he's like, holds up the phone like I'm watching the game. Like he's like watching the game. They're like, baseball consumes our lives no matter what. Because yeah, anytime you have a big competitive sport like that, you can't just quit cold turkey. Doesn't usually work out that way. You end up still staying involved in some capacity, whether it's watching games or coaching or helping. You stay involved somehow, or being a spectator. When you've invested that much time in your life and passion into something like that, you can't just walk away from it and never think of it again, unless you weren't really that passionate, I suppose. But yeah, I laughed when they thought Kosei was with a girl, because I'm like, no, he's probably watching the game. He is, but he has a girlfriend. Kosei has a girlfriend he's going out with the next day. We'll talk about that. Isn't that sweet? But yeah, I thought he was with Manaka, but they're going to the stadium. I wrote my notes. He's with Manaka probably, or he's watching the game at the stadium. Close to the second one. But anyway, Mei strikes Furuya out. We cut back to that. Itsuki comments. I love this because Itsuki comments, he's like, okay, good. Mei-san's settling into a rhythm. Shirakawa's like, yeah, he's warmed up now. And Carlos is like, should have done that from the start. I love, Carlos gives Mei so much grief and so much hell. I love it. I love Carlos is that one friend that's like, I ain't spoiling you. I'm telling you like it is. I love Carlos for it. It's great. Because right after that, it's good that someone like Carlos is on the team with Inashiro that does not stroke Mei's ego as much as Shirakawa and Itsuki do. Because right after that, Itsuki's like, Mei's awesomeness is about to make itself known. I was like, oh my God, Tadano. Like, could you not be more infatuated with him? This volume made me realize, I said in the last volume that Tadano was a lot like Yui. He is. He's also a lot like Koshu. He's a lot like Koshu. I imagine that the relationship and the battery between Koshu and Sawamura is going to be very similar to the battery of Itsuki and Mei this year, because Koshu will be a second year like Itsuki is now, and Sawamura will be a third year like Mei is now. So I'm just going to call it, if Terajima goes down that route and shows us that, I just would foresee Itsuki and Koshu being kind of similar to the battery in their batteries with Sawamura and Mei, respectively. Although, I don't think that if Sawamura ever got tired enough to where Koshu had to carry him back to the dorms, I would imagine Sawamura wouldn't be a diva about it. He'd just literally be passed out. And I would imagine that Furuya would be like, just have like little dots by his head, and Haruichi would be like, drop him off on the side of the road. He'd be like, drop him off. Don't spoil him. You know, I figured he would do something like, kind of like the scene we'll talk about later on. But God, I do love the dynamic between Shirakawa, Carlos, Itsuki, and Mei. It's an amazing dynamic, and I absolutely love it. So I'm happy that we're seeing this game. Kosei was definitely a presence for Ichidai Third, and I loved Kosei a lot in the last game. But Ichidai Third didn't have a lot of big personalities like Inashiro does. Inashiro has a lot of big personalities, so I like that about them a lot. And so they're like, something within Mei is something you can't measure with a pitching machine. And I was like, yep. And Sawamura gets a smug face at the end of chapter 267. I was like, it was a very Mei expression that Sawamura had. We'll talk about it in chapter 268 though. Thank you for not spoiling me. Thank you for not spoiling me with chapter 268. Because we cut back from the Suganami ward. I'm like, what was in the Suganami ward? What was in that? Is that where Raichi is? Is he in a ward? Better not be. I don't know. You probably will all comment down below what the ward is. As long as it's not a spoiler. If it's something to do that's going to get brought up later on, don't mention it. But otherwise. But Yakushi. Raizo's, of course, listening to the game. I want to make note. He's listening to the game on this little rinky-dink radio. Now, you could argue that he's outside on the field with the players. They don't have a TV set up, so he can't watch on the TV. And Raizo probably has a flip phone. He probably doesn't have a smartphone. But it just seems very fitting for Yakushi that they have a radio they're listening to it on. And then Sonata showing up hotter than ever. What in the world? Sonata Terajima, you knew that we needed a little bit of fan service in this volume, and you were like, Sonata will work, right? Our boy. So good. So good. I just love seeing. And Raizo was all of us. Raizo was like, we're so happy to see you, Sonata. Yes. Come and join us. And Sonata's like, I just can't walk away. And he has like baseball pants on, like he was going to help them. I'm so happy. So happy to see Sonata. Now I just need to see Raichi and I will be complete again. But this chapter is called The Avatar of Loneliness. And it's probably one of my favorite chapter titles, I think, of probably any of the volume we've had so far is the Avatar of Loneliness. And it's Furuya. Furuya, he has 2 walks in 1 inning. And the third years joke about it. They're like, typical Furuya. And I'm like, in the finals, that's not something good. And I kept waiting for somebody to comment about it. On the team, I kept thinking of maybe Ochiai or Katioka or Miyuki would say something about the walks. But no, they're too hyped up with it being finals. And I understand that. But Rio and Tamba are not going to let Furuya walk away from that without saying something. But Miyuki says he gets a bad feeling from Kunitomo. And he thinks Furuya's pitching well. I'm like, I guess so. I guess he is pitching fine. I do love that when Furuya looks to Mei to pick him off, he's like Mei's just like sticks his tongue out Furuya. Mei, it's funny going into this game. I remember back in the first year, Mei was so excited to see Furuya. But now Mei, his view of Furuya is kind of tempered. And I don't think Mei sees Furuya as a threat. I think Mei sees Furuya as a challenge because he's doing really well. And somebody that's kind of hogging some of his glory. So he's a little annoyed by that. But I don't think he sees Furuya as a threat. Maybe he does, and that's why he sticks out his tongue. It's like a defense mechanism. I don't know. We'll talk about it as we go through the chapters. But it's the top of the third. It's still 0-0. Mei, this is what I wanted to bring up. Mei he seems so disappointed that Furuya, because back in the fall, he was saying how Furuya and him were so similar. And we're facing very similar pressures as the ace. And he's like, you're dealing with the same pressure that I faced as the ace. And he's like, what are you going to do about it? Because Mei, here's the thing. Mei is like, there is no other pitcher like me on my team. There's no Sawamura on Inashiro. If Mei is likening himself to Furuya, there is no Sawamura. I mean, and I don't mean to say that sounds bad for the Hirano or the guy that's pitching that seems like he's fine. And Akamatsu's fine. But it's not the same, right? And so Mei, especially back in the fall before Akamatsu was really acclimated to the team, they just had the other third-year pitcher. And he was kind of like Nori, but it's not the same, right? So Mei is saying that he expected Furuya to be able to overcome like he did, and he didn't. He's like, you just got to have that ace number taken away from you, and now all the pressure's gone, and you can just pitch relaxed and comfortable, huh? Because you don't have that pressure as the ace anymore. And you could tell Mei is really pissed about that because he's like, I don't get that luxury. But he lets it go. He's like, it doesn't impact me. Doesn't impact me. He's like, I'm fine. And so what I put down here, he's like, you can be comfy and relaxed. I like that Sawamura, he he's drawn to Mei. Yeah, I love that Sawamura's like watching and has his hand like on the railing, like watching Mei pitch. And just Mei's just getting all worked up. And I love that Aso, of course, Aso seems like he's the one that comes up to bat right when Mei's getting flustered about something, because Aso comes up and thinks that Mei's mocking him, when in reality Mei's having like a full-blown monologue to himself out on the mound about Furuya and him not having the ace number anymore. But in any case, I like that what did I put on here? He gets him out and decides it's time to step it up. And Itsuki, he says that Mei's goal, and then we get the whole thing with Itsuki and Mei talking about it. At this point, it's hard to read some of my notes, so I apologize. But Itsuki goes through this whole thing, and this is probably my favorite part of the volume, honestly, the little thing with Mei, where he talks about how Mei's goal has been to strengthen his pitches. And I was like, that's exactly like Sawamura. That was right before the game against Kosei. Sawamura was like, I want to work on strengthening the pitches that I have. So eventually, I want to upgrade the pitches I have and eventually get these other pitches. So Sawamura is doing a lot of the same things that Mei is doing. Like, he's strengthening his pitches. And I love Itsuki going through that Mei did a lot of the training by himself. Like, it showed him, like, lifting the weight up, doing, like, the throw with the medicine ball, like, doing all the different things. Like, he has bubbling inquisitiveness, which is a lot like Sawamura. Mei and Sawamura are both very similar. They both try to improve themselves as pitchers, and they do a lot of it on their own time. Like, Sawamura goes out and does his research, like the pitch that he was improving. He told the catchers about it, but he did a lot of it on his own, like Mei has. And so we see from there that he gets past 150 kilometers per hour, which is great. And then he looks like a kid with the Rapsoda machine. Like, that little expression of Mei, he did look like a little kid. He was so excited. And I love getting more. I figured that when we get to the finals, we'd get more on Inashiro. But I love getting Mei fleshed out a little bit more, because it shows that, yeah, he's a brat. He's a diva. But we get to kind of see underneath the surface of that what Tadano is seeing. And he's like, yeah, he's like a little kid. He has this pure excitement for baseball and loves being a pitcher. And when he gets new pitches, he wanted to come and bring them to Tadano and show him. And it was so good. He's like a pure kid, but underneath, he's also a baseball demon. Like, he is obsessed. And it reminded me, when he said that he's a baseball demon, it reminded me of Hongo's coach. That Hongo's coach was kind of the same way, out there like tending the field, tending the mound. Mei's doing the same thing. And it's, yeah, that devotion, that utter devotion, even if it means being by yourself, to that sport. It reminds me a lot of Oikawa and Haikyuu. Mei does a wee bit, just a wee bit. But yeah, but I love the panel where Itsuki's carrying Mei back, and Mei's like, I can't take another step, and Itsuki's like, okay, I'll carry you. Itsuki getting some muscle, right? And I love that Shirakawa's like, quit spoiling him, and Carlos is like, dump him on the side of the road. Again, Carlos spares no expense to shit on Mei, and I 100% love it. They're probably some of my favorite interactions between the three of them. But yeah, and then Sawamura and Furuya, they see Mei and they get fired up. It's crazy, right? So from there, we get chapter 269, and everybody's on fire of how to deal with Mei. And Sawamura, he's just got his fists clenched watching. And of course Koshu notices. Of course he does. Koshu notices everything. He notices that Sawamura is trying to figure Mei out as both him and Furuya are getting fired up. He's trying to be like, what is with this aura around this pitcher? And so of course they call Mei the best of his generation. He's pretty much earned that title. And Itsuki saying that, yeah, we could say it's the improved spin rate efficiency on our pitches. We could say that there's that. But there's something you can't measure with Mei as a pitcher. And it's the loneliness that Mei has had bearing down the ace number since the fall of his first year. So Tadano was like, yeah, Mei has been the ace for 3 years and has had to bear all that pressure without being contested. And every time he pitches, he throws all of himself and everything that he has become at the batters. And that double spread of Mei with Furuya and Sawamura watching when Tadano said that, oh, it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, so there's been no change-ups so far, and everybody's kind of like, okay, Sato's a little bit worried. They're like, he hasn't even done a curveball or a change-up yet, and he's doing this good. And then Sawamura, being our sunshine boy, being peak perfection, is like, bring it. He's like, we've built Mei up to be the end-all be-all boss, the final boss. Why would we expect anything different? Let's take on this challenge and go. And I'm glad Sawamura is back to like being the ace, the fire of the ace, right? To be the spokesperson of the team again. And even like Miyuki smiles, everybody's all excited by it. I love it. And Furuya responding in kind with 156 kilometers per hour pitch. I was like, damn. And so Miyuki, the chapter ends with Miyuki being like, is all this force a good thing? And I'm like, red flag. Red flag. Here we go. But we go into chapter 270 and Kosei is at batting practice, of course. I respect Kosei a lot. You know why? Because he moved his date to the next day. You know what? That's a true gentleman move. Because he knew that if he had a girlfriend on a date, he wouldn't be able to give her as much time as he wanted to because he'd be so worried about this game. That is incredibly kind. Good on you, sir. I'm like, if I was Kosei's girlfriend, I'd be like, well, thanks. I'm glad that you want to focus only on me for our date, so I'll gladly go hang out with my friends for a day while you go watch that baseball game, right? Except I'd probably go watch the baseball game with Kosei, in all honesty. I would totally do that. That'd be fun. Kosei's commentary, I'm really excited to see his perspectives on this game. Sonata was really quiet during the semifinals, and they had lost against Ichidai. So I'm like, okay, Terajima, are you setting up for I don't know, I don't want that, because no, I want that to be opposite. Maybe that's it, yeah. Because Sonata was watching because Ichidai third had beat them, and Ichidai lost, and Sonata was kind of disappointed. So what if in this case Sato does win? We'll get to see the opposite reaction with Kosei. So we'll see. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe, possibly. But yeah, in any case, we go. I love that his friend is like, there's a stadium next door, literally. We're going to watch the game. You're not getting out of this. So Furuya gives another walk, like his third one. And Yuki, he goes, that's Furuya, all right. And I'm like, that's not a compliment, right? Rio is the only one so far in this game that has complained about the walks that Furuya has given. Rio has been a freaking savage in this game, which we'll talk about him in another comment, but Rio has been savage, but he's the only one calling him out. And I'm like, I'm happy for Furuya. I'm glad he's doing well. I'm just saying, if Nori or Sawamura had 4 walks already in the game, they'd at least have a coach commenting about it. But it's fine. It's fine. So Furuya, Miyuki has figured out the strategy that Inashiro has, and it's that they're not going to hit any low pitches. They're waiting for a fastball or something that they can get. Furuya doesn't seem bothered, and we cut to Furuya. And I like that, again, Furuya's so simple. Miyuki's like, okay, well, Furuya doesn't seem like he's, concerned or stressed out by this information. And then we cut to Furuya, and all he does is he goes, his mitt looks big enough that I can throw to it. I can't hate Furuya because he's so kind and he's so sweet. And I'm like, and I do want him to, I'm like Sawamura. We'll talk about Sawamura in the next couple chapters, but I do want him to do his best. There's a lot of red flags in this volume, and I'm like, Terajima, what we doing? But I'm with Sawamura. I'm proud of Furuya, and I'm glad that he's doing well. So everybody's cheering on Furuya, and Sawamura is happy. That's probably the biggest growth and development moment for our Sunshine Boy, is that Sawamura has moved past the petty jealousy of Furuya getting all the attention and now is proud and supportive of his teammate. Because yeah, it would be kind of shitty for Sawamura to get jealous and upset at Furuya. And that's where I thought this was going for a second in this volume. I was like, oh, please don't do that. Because I was like, Furuya was not jealous during Sawamura pitching all 9 innings. Furuya wasn't jealous then. I was like, Sawamura, don't you be jealous of him now. And he's not. Of course, Terajima sneaks in some angst in there, but we'll get to that. But yeah, so he's happy. Yamaoka's up. His theme is Astro Boy. And then Tamba. I love that Tamba, again, Rio being savage. Tamba's like, well, the last thing we need is a home run right now. And Rio's like, says the guy that let a home run happen in his last year. And I was like, Rio, what a freaking savage. So then, of course, the first years, I love when he like hits the foul. The first year's like, whoa, all together. Freaking precious. Miyuki, he baits Yamaoka, and I loved that. And they call Furuya Flamethrower Furuya, the monster Satoru. And so I like, again, getting some red flags, because yeah, a flamethrower burns out real quick, right? Flames burn out real quick. They go real intense, and then they fizzle out. I don't like where that's going. And then Ochiai, he shudders. He's like, don't go through your reserves. Yeah, don't go through your reserves, right? So Ichidai what do we know? What do we make note of? Ichidai, yeah, the guys comment that the stadium is crazy. Mei's like, oh, did you finally warm up? Like, Mei's just getting all cocky. And this part was a little concerning, was that going into the 4th inning, Furuya has 48 pitches and Mei only has 27. Just 27 in 4 innings. That's really, really good. I was like, that's rough. Furuya already has double that going into the 5th, or going into the 4th, and I was like, So that was a red flag. But yeah, and then we end chapter 270 with Haruichi getting struck out, and Sawamura is surprised, like, oh shit, even Haruichi gets struck out? Okay. So we cut to chapter 271, Sharpshooter. I really liked this chapter a lot. I really liked it. Sharpshooter, we have Kataoka and Furuya. Furuya gets like the fire built up, and Kataoka's like, calm down. You're gonna take that down a notch. We're only in the 4th inning. And so then we have the establishment of the Sato Press, which is the dubbed name of the strategy Sato used against Ichidai third to build up stress over the innings on the pitcher. And so that's what they're planning to do with Mei. And Mei is just like, guys are just glaring at me. I'm not being pressured. So whether or not it's going to work in the end, we'll see. But it has a name. Shirasu, of course Shirasu connects because he's our white laser. And he gets a double. And then Miyuki is up next. And man, they build up that Miyuki and Mei showdown. Oh my God. He has his old song back, the Sharpshooter, which I like that a lot. The Naramiya and Mei close-ups, the Naramiya and Miyuki close-ups in this, Terajima was just having a blast drawing them together. And it's the weirdest thing because we talk about rivalries in this series. And yeah, there is Sawamura and Furuya, but it's more of like an internal rivalry, and their comrades and their teammates. So the dynamic is different. But in all honesty, the biggest rivalry in this series outside of Furuya and Sawamura is Mei and Miyuki. That's the biggest rivalry in the series. And it's because Mei and Miyuki belong to these two teams. And Mei's like, I wanted you to be on my team all this year. And Miyuki's like, no, I want a challenge. And so it's always been between the two of them, which is really interesting. But yeah, the one strike and then a ball. Miyuki, he wants that change up. He's like, I want a curveball or a changeup. You've not shown him yet to anybody, but I want to see him. And he keeps hitting fouls to force it. And that page of Mei, when he has the look and his face is so darkened and demonic looking, and Miyuki is like, I want you to bust it out. Let's do this. Oh my gosh, that was so good. He's like, come on. He's like, I know you've got it in you. And then Sawamura, you hear him screaming, and you flash back to when he came back from the training camp, and Sawamura's like, can you hit it off of him? And he's like, oh, I will hit off of him. And then Miyuki gets the change up. And that cliffhanger, you all that had to wait between 271 to 272, bless you. That's a horrible cliffhanger. It sucks. I'm glad that we didn't end the volume on that. So Miyuki, damn it, he gets out on a foul of all things. He's able to hit it, but he gets off on a foul. And then Mei, when he does this to this, I was like, are you serious? Mei doing that pose. I love that Sawamura and Furuya are like, what? Like, just like the audacity. And then Miyuki and Furuya, or Miyuki and Mei, when he comes up to bat again, we'll talk about that in a second. But I love that Mei is like, I'm not some cheap pitcher. He's like, you think you're going to be in my battery one day, and you're going to know everything about me. I love that. It was basically like if they were exes. He's like, oh, you think this is just a one-night stand? I was like, oh my God, ridiculous. And so then Zono comes up to bat, and he's like, well, Mei was really concentrating on Miyuki, so his guard's probably down now. That's just little old me, and I'll get a hit and score for the team. And he gets a hit, but then he gets out, and it's like, ugh. It's like, oh my God. And so then Mei, and then they come back up to bat, and Mei comes up here, and I freaking loved it. I love that Mei was just looking at Miyuki being like, you guys could win if you convince me to drop out. And Miyuki's like, well, then if you don't want to drop out, then stand a little further from the plate. It's like, you two, the banter the flirting between Mei and Miyuki, it's just like, again, hashtag X vibes, just totally between those two of them. Mm-hmm. And so then, but Mei, he gets struck out by force at 160 kilometers per hour. Insanity. And so, God, I love it. And Mei knows like Sawamura does against... I like that they establish, I'm reading my notes here, Mei establishes that he tries to annoy Furuya the same way that Sawamura tried to annoy Kosei. And Yuki points it out, Tetsu points out, that both Mei and Sawamura were trying to annoy their pitchers because they're both strategists. Again, the parallels between Mei and Sawamura is amazing, that both Mei and Sawamura were trying to annoy their pitchers to get them to do a certain move. Furuya, I just can't picture Furuya whenever Furuya has batted, I don't think we've ever got inside of Furuya's head when he's been at bat. Have we? If we haven't, maybe it was season 1, but I don't think we've really got inside Furuya's head as a batter. I just don't think that's happened. I don't think it's been something that's come up. So whenever Mei and Sawamura have been at bat, we have gotten a little bit inside their heads on some plays, like with this one with Mei. So... But yeah, his badger face when Mei gets struck out, his little badger face and everything, it was super cute. But then we cut to Sawamura, and chapter 272 ends with Sawamura looking on at Furuya and thinking about Senbatsu back when he was number 18. And Koshu's like watching him intently because Koshu's like, what's going to happen? And Koshu is like all of us in the audience, like, don't you do this, Terajima, don't you put this angst on us, we don't need it. So chapter 273 happens, which luckily we'll talk about that. But yeah, Mei's mad. Inashiro thinks that Mei's pissed off at Furuya. Inashiro, they all think that he's going to burn up. Mei even makes the comment later in the chapter that Furuya is a gas guzzler. Yeah, he's just running. He's going to be running on empty soon. He is burning through too hard, too fast. Even though we're at the 5th inning, we're still like halfway there. And so Inashiro, that's like a red flag. And Tadano is the biggest red flag of them all in this conversation because he says Furuya's balls and strikes couldn't be more obvious. And that's why I think is a big difference between Furuya and Sawamura is that Sawamura, his pitching is so tricky that the batters get kind of caught up with it and they're like, oh, we can't quite see what this is, right? Even if it's not the fastest, even if it's not the most technical, it's weird enough that it confuses the batters. Furuya's pitches aren't weird. They're not crazy technical, but they're just force. They're just fast. And they're like the bread and butter bare bones. But the question is, does Furuya have the stamina to keep that up? And Tadano does not think he can. And he's like, yeah, he's pretty obvious on what his balls and strikes are. So if we just hold out and be patient, he's going to run its course and we're going to be able to take advantage of it, is what Tadano thinks. And Tadano's a smart catcher, as we come to find out from the other third years. They just have to be patient. So, but yeah, everyone in the stands is so excited about Senbatsu Furuya being back. And there's a part of me that I'm really proud of Furuya, and I'm going to draw inspiration from Sawamura in this chapter. But then there's a part of me that's like, they were cheering Sawamura on just as much in the semifinals game. And I forget that reading this volume. I'm like, I have to tell myself, Romania, they were cheering Sawamura on just as much. In the semifinals game, they were just as happy with Sawamura. He led the team. But it's just like the crowd just gets so going for Furuya, right? They just get so going. And Koshu, he's like, should we go back? And then Sawamura, he smiles. There's no bags under his eyes. He's just all smiles. He's like, Furuya's awesome, isn't he? And he's just proud. Sawamura's proud of his teammate. And he says, he's like, man, he was crazier at Koshin. He was crazier at Senbatsu, but he's still really proud of him. But then there's that little twinge of angst, right? That little tiny drop of angst. Because Sawamura's proud for Furuya. He's happy for him. He wants to do his best. And you're like, okay, Sawamura's in a good place. He's been a good ace. He's been a good teammate. He's not being selfish. But then Sawamura throws in that self-deprecating angst that I'm like, are you freaking serious? But now Koshu knows. But he says, no wonder Cap said what he said. And I was like, oh, and now Koshu has a little like bubble by him, like, wait, what? Koshu's like, wait, what are you talking about? What did Captain say? What did Miyuki say to him? What's going on? Because yeah, Sawamura's like, no wonder Miyuki talked to him about being the pros, because he sees how good he is. And I think now, we've talked about in the comments with volume 28, I think now after reading volume 28 and 29 and coming back to it in this chapter, I think what's so frustrating and why Sawamura gets so down is because he doesn't think, it's not necessarily so much the fact that Miyuki told Furuya about Miyuki wanting to go pro. It's maybe not so much that, but it's also the fact that he's like, well, you want to go pro too, Furuya, right? But he's never asked Sawamura that. He's never said, Sawamura, do you think you'll go pro? And so Sawamura's like, well, damn, I'm the ace, but you don't think I've got the chance to go pro like Furuya? Okay. And that's so heartbreaking. But I really think that's what Sawamura's getting at. He's like, yeah, Furuya's awesome. And it's so frustrating because you almost wonder if Sawamura thinks that maybe he was just given like the pity ace number. And you know that's not true. You know that Sawamura worked his ass off to get that ace number and he deserves it because he's a better like ace mentally and as far as team spirit goes, and he's an excellent pitcher, but he just gets so down on himself and second guesses it. But it's kind of one of those deals where, and we talked about this, there was somebody that commented on YouTube for volume 28 earlier about this too. I was reading it today, and I'm sorry I don't have your name, but they were talking about like, yeah, it's frustrating because Miyuki, in the moment, Miyuki gets so frustrated in volume 28 because he thinks back to Nori, and Nori, revealing he didn't want to go pro or even play baseball after high school. And I think Miyuki in that moment kind of panics and goes, oh God, is Furuya thinking about baseball after high school? I hope he is because he's good enough to go pro. He should. So I think Miyuki in that moment, he had that flashback to Nori and was like, oh shit. And in the moment, he's like, hey, Miyuki, hey, Furuya, I'm thinking about going pro. You are too, right? Because you deserve to, right? So it was just Miyuki in the moment reacting to that memory of Nori and being like, oh crud, I need to double check with Furuya real quick that he's still planning to go pro because he should. But the problem is that Miyuki should probably ask the same of other players, not just Furuya, and not just wait till Nori comes out with it. Miyuki should talk with his other teammates about what they plan to do after high school, and your batteries are one of them. So, now that he knows about Nori, now that he knows about Furuya, maybe he should ask Sawamura too, and he just hasn't done it. And the sad thing is Sawamura feels left out. He feels like, well, I'm not good enough for you to ask me, but you'll ask Furuya. So, and you know that you shouldn't think that way, but it's just teenage boys and Sawamura in the moment. And so when he came back to that conversation, I was like, oh my gosh, Terajima, you just had to put that angst in there, didn't you? And now Koshu's like, what's going on? And so he says, and then Sawamura says, yeah, let's go back. And Koshu looks unsure, but Sawamura, he says, we just need to trust in Furuya. And he thinks back to what Miyuki told him, being like, I might need you. And he's like, we just need to trust in Furuya, and I'll save my strength for if the team needs me. It's like, ugh. And so then, yeah, Furuya, he's doing great. He has 7 strikeouts. Mei only has 6. Sawamura, he's like, nice. I love that he goes, nice brute forcing, man. And I'm like, Sawamura, my dude. But yeah, cheering him on. And then Kosei shows up and sees Sawamura in the dugout. And I'm just waiting for Kosei's commentary on that. I'm just waiting for it. Kosei showed up right when Furuya ended that inning pitching. So now Kosei's going to get to see Furuya pitching in the next inning. And so that's going to be exciting to see what Kosei's commentary is on. And if Kosei's like, I just want Kosei to be like rooting for Sawamura to go pitch when he does eventually. But it's interesting that he shows up right as he goes in. Miyuki, he makes note that Furuya is at 63 pitches and he had 15 of them in the 4th. And so he tells Kachioka he's going all out, but he's being effective. He's not fading out yet. Let's keep going. And Ochai points out, he's like, no team really has an advantage at this point. So it's really going to be a stressful moment figuring out when to switch out pitchers. He's like, we don't really know. And so Sawamura keeps cheering him on, though. He's like, keep on going while you still got steam. And of course, Furuya's song is from the north. Of course it is. Makes sense. Why would we expect anything different? But Mei is eager to strike Furuya out. And he gets a little too eager, perhaps, because Furuya manages to get on base. Everybody's yelling, hell yeah, it's the top of the 5th. Everybody's excited. And at that moment, at the end of chapter 273, Furuya's like, it's so hot. My blood is really pumping. And I'm like, if you pass out in the middle of this game, nope. Do not get a heat stroke in the middle of this, Furuya. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. And so we cut to chapter 274, which is the last chapter of the volume. And so Furuya, he says he's really hot, but then we cut to him saying, I feel really alive when I play baseball. And we see that moment where Miyuki caught. Again, I am under the full assumption that Furuya and Miyuki are like Chris and Sawamura. It's that mentorship is how Furuya views Miyuki. And then Kanemaru gets a bunt to get Furuya to second. I love that Kosei, he's like, yeah, they're applying more pressure as the game goes on. We're at the 5th inning and it's still 0-0. Oddly mirroring the semifinals, might I add. It's mirroring them a lot, which makes me nervous. And so Kataoka, he tells Kanemaru that your forte is fastballs, so wait for a breaking ball and go for it. And it goes to center field, but Carlos, we get that butt shot and it was not wasted. He gets right in there and catches that ball to center field. And I love that there's a little panel. If you look back at that panel, Itsuki like jumps up to cheer, like he jumps up off of his feet. I'm like, Itsuki being the most supportive is wonderful. And then Aso and Zono just get like shit on this whole volume. With Aso, it's the fact that his song is unmanly. I don't know why. I've not heard the song, so maybe the lyrics aren't bad, but just that song title, Unmanly, you gave that to Aso? Really? Okay. And so he doesn't think that he's worthy of the changeup because Miyuki got it. I'm like, no. You're thinking the wrong way, Aso. Miyuki got it first. That's the thing. It's not that Mei is above giving anybody but Miyuki a changeup, but he was saving it for Miyuki. That's the difference. And anytime a character in this series is like, I'm going to be a hero, I'm like, you're out. It's like a nail in the coffin. And Aso says, he's like, I'll be the hero. And then Mei pitching it and him like swinging his whole body into it. Mei just turning around, not even watching him strike out. Oh my God. But yeah, Tetsu's all fired up and is like, Mei's trying to break the game flow. And he's like a flame sticking off of him. It's great. And then I didn't notice this until I went back and reread the chapter for my notes. But that little gesture that Itsuki does on his leg, that little tap, is for a pickoff. And I was like, oh, because yeah, you see him make the little motion on his knee, and then you see Furuya right behind him. You see Shirakawa like zoom past him in the background, and then Mei throws it to try to pick him off. Genius. And of course, I love that Mei has his tongue out to Furuya. He's like, it's like, I almost gotcha. And Miyauchi notes that Itsuki has a sharp skills and observation as a catcher. And we cut from Itsuki to Miyuki. And just like Sawamura was doing with Mei's pitches, just like how Sawamura has hand gripping the rail when Mei was pitching, Miyuki has his hand gripping the rail with Itsuki and his catching. I'm like, I love it. I love it so much. It's such a good parallel. Miyuki and Sawamura doing the same with their pitcher and catchers. I love it. But Mei has 6 strikeouts. And then I love that at the very end of this chapter, Furuya's like pouring down sweat. And Sawamura, he's like, hey, he's like, take a deep breath. He's like, control your breathing. Take your time. And Miyuki's like, wipe the sweat off of you. And Furuya's like, yeah. He's like, thanks. Mei is amazing. And Sawamura's like, well, that's nothing new. He's like, yeah, that's nothing new, but fret not. He's got nothing on you. Sawamura, my dude. Sawamura, my dude. I can't. It's, yep. So, this volume was so bizarre because it went by really quickly and Furuya is doing really well, but I don't know. This whole volume was full of red flags and I'm like, I don't know. I don't get good vibes. I feel like something bad is going to happen in the next volume. And it's gonna bring Sawamura in either in the 6th inning or the 5th inning. I think that Sawamura is gonna come in, and I don't know. My biggest fear is that Sawamura is gonna come in and Inashiro is gonna get a hit, and Sawamura is gonna get all dejected, and then it's gonna be like, and then the crowd will be like, "Why'd you take Furuya out?" And I'll be like, "Because he was about to have a heat stroke." And so I don't know. Terajima just this volume was really funny and great and action packed, but there's that little Terajima's like out in the sidelines with a little knife, and then he's like Miyuki telling that pro speech to Furuya in the corner, but now Koshu knows, so I'm gonna wait for that to come around full circle. I'm gonna wait for Koshu to have that nugget of knowledge and bring it up to Miyuki later. It may not be in this game, maybe after the fact. It may be after the fact. It may be after this game's over with. Koshu's going to be like, hey, did you tell something to Furuya about anything before the game that Sawamura would have heard? And then Miyuki confronts Sawamura and they talk it out. After this game's over with, preferably. But we'll see. So yeah. I'm really excited to see your thoughts down below, what you guys thought in the comments. This game's been really good so far. I can't believe we're already to the 5th inning in a volume and a half. Sato's game took forever, but it was amazing, so it was worth it. But we're already to the 5th inning. Either we're going to slow down or we're going to be done in a few volumes. I'm not ready for that, y'all. I'm not ready for that at all. So, in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with volume 31 of Ace of the Diamond Act 2.